Good morning. It's chilly and sunny, but cold. We're having cold weather on the west coast and an incredible heat wave on the other side of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Huh, there's weirdness going on in the chat room. Uh, wow. Let's see if I can rearrange things. I guess you're just going to see my hand now and again. That's better. Well, yesterday I turned 69 years old. I'll have to remember that when I'm taking a survey and they ask how old I am. I think I'm 49 until I get up out of my chair. And then I realize I'm not that young. I got tickles, sorry. Yesterday, a friend took me to lunch. Oh, thank you, Jan. Jan says, happy birthday. A friend took me to lunch for my birthday. We went to a local coffee shop called Crestline Cafe, and I was thoroughly impressed with the high quality of both the food and the service. I had a grilled chicken salad, and it was loaded. Imagine a chef's salad on steroids. A whole chicken breast grilled and cut into strips, hard-boiled eggs, bacon, two kinds of cheese, and of course tomatoes, onions, red onions, there's rings of it, and lettuce, of course, several varieties of lettuce. It was awesome. And this coffee shop knows how to make coleslaw. All too often, a restaurant will give you coleslaw that just tastes like vinegar. It's like eating sauerkraut, not coleslaw. But this place, they make their own, and it's awesome. It's so good. Hi, Wita. Hey, Tora, get out of my stuff. Get, bad cat. All right. I should mention that Wita sent me a lovely birthday card. I think I have it around here somewhere. You say hi to your adoring fans and quit trying to eat my breakfast. All I have is some Ritz crackers, but she wants them. Do you need some salt? Is that your problem? All right, hop down. I'll give you a potato chip to lick, okay? You see, the salt Nazis have even gotten to cat food. And a deficit of salt, a salt deficit, is much worse than having too much salt in your diet. Hi, Jason, in the chat room. My first typo of the day. Well, anyway, it was just incredibly good. You would have thought you were in a high-end restaurant and not just the local coffee shop. They're amazing. And one time I was just gesticulating, talking with my hands, but the waitress thought I had flagged her down, so she came to the table, So as not to waste it, I asked for a to-go box because the salad was so loaded that I couldn't eat it all. And the coleslaw, which was actually my friend's side dish, but we split it. Oh man, you know, it was really fresh cabbage, chopped up just right, not just little squares and not big long strings, but short strings and some little squares. And the dressing on it and the flavor of it was just awesome. Mm, awesome possum. Yeah, Tora licked the potato chip and now she's happy and not bugging me. Good kitty. Sweetie has disappeared. I haven't seen her in 2 days. She's done this sort of thing before, but she's 16 years old, so I suspect that I won't be seeing that kitty cat again. Kind of makes me sad. I've lost, pets just don't live as long as we do. And I've lost so many cats and dogs. But usually I knew what happened to them. Just not seeing Sweetie anymore really hurts. I don't get to bury her or anything. I don't get to hold her and pet her. And a stray cat had kittens under my house. I think I mentioned that last week. I still haven't caught them, but I'm working on it. The kittens would be easy to catch if the mother didn't interfere. Tora, get off my chair. You know better. That's an angry Tora. She says, I want more treats, Mom. Let me see if you ate your cat food. You didn't eat your canned cat food. You don't deserve treats. So, I'm a cat. Gimme. All right. I didn't give her treats after she said hi to her adoring fans. That's her problem. All right. But you know what? You're going to have to say hi again because Jason didn't get to see you. Hurry up. I'm going to pick you up and make you say hi. Come on, Tora. We will get to Galatians chapter 3. That's the chapter in which Paul lays out that while he loves the law does not save you. You're saved by faith. Huh, Tora? See? Say hi. See, she's happier now. Yes. Aw, kitty kisses. Squinting is kisses, huh? All right. It's over here, dummy. You can't eat. I can't put them down in midair. Jeez, cats. Oh, I see what that heart thing is. I can heart someone else's. Well, I can only heart the most recent, I guess. No, I don't know. There's a heart thingy. I click on it and I guess nothing happens. Humph. I give up. It's something new showing up in my chat room. Okay, you're saved by faith, not works. And he refers to the promise to Abraham. First, God took Abraham's faith for righteousness, and then God said to Abraham, "Through you shall all the nations be blessed." So let's take a look at verse 15 and following. To give a human example, brothers, even with a man made covenant, no one annuls it or adds to it once it has been ratified. Now the promises were made to Abraham and to his offspring. It does not say "and to offsprings" with an S on the end. I added that, referring to many, but referring to one. And to your offspring, that's the quote of what God said to Abraham. And then Paul talking, who is Christ. So Paul says Abraham's promise is given to Christ. Now, verse 17, this is what I mean. The law, which came 430 years afterward, does not annul a covenant previously ratified by God so as to make the promise void. For if the inheritance comes by the law, it no longer comes by promise, but God gave it to Abraham by a promise. Now, what is this 430 years later? That's the Exodus. Paul is saying that the Israelites left Egypt 430 years after Abraham's time. "430 years after God called Abraham out from Ur in the Chaldees and took his faith for righteousness and promised Abraham, through you shall all the nations be blessed." And Paul is saying that promise to Abraham's offspring was to Christ specifically. Now, here we get into the weeds in verse 19. Why then the law? It was added because of transgressions, until the offspring should come to whom the promise had been made. And it goes on, but I'm going to stop here to make a point. Many evangelicals will say, well, the law was given to Moses. So the next line, and it was put in place through angels by an intermediary. And they will say that intermediary who put the law in place is Moses. That doesn't make sense. And I'll show you why. And it was put in place through angels by an intermediary. Now, if that's Moses, verse 20 makes no sense. Now, an intermediary implies more than one, but God is one. Well, nobody would think that Moses is a contender for the godhood. This intermediary has to be someone who could be confused as a challenger to the oneness of God. That would be the angel of the Lord, who is God, but kind of isn't at the same time. And the Shema, God is one, in the next verse, kind of confirms it has to be God Himself in human form. He wrote on the tablets with His finger. God did. The tablets of the law. So this confirms what I've been saying. The law to which Paul refers is the Ten Commandments, not the hundreds of laws of Moses. But anyway, going back, why then the law? Because of transgressions. Whose transgressions? Well, once again, most evangelical or fundamental Christians will say, well, that's Adam and Eve in the garden. Well, that was thousands of years before the Exodus. So maybe it was because of the flood and the Nephilim. Well, it's still hundreds of years later. Why wait that long? And 430 years after the Tower of Babel and the call to Abraham. Well, now these have been put forth by um, Michael S. Heiser, Dr. Heiser, who sadly passed away in January from cancer. He was only 60 years old, but he was discussing a paper by a doctoral student named Tyler Stewart, suggesting that the law was added because of the transgressions of the Nephilim, who, saw the daughters of men that they were fair and took wives. And well, those were the watchers, and then they kind of the sons of God, and they kind of the women gave birth to Nephilim. Although I beg to differ, but that's for another discussion. Well, it's still why the gap of hundreds of years. I suggest on my own that it's because of where the people are going during the Exodus. They're going to the Holy Land, they're going to Canaan, where all these pagans are living in luxury in their cities. The same luxury that attracted Abraham's nephew Lot to go live in Sodom among not just sinners, but real criminals. What's the word? Not convicting. Doing all sorts of bad things: rape, murder, theft, assault, battery, and it was acceptable, and making offerings to their pagan gods. So this law was intended to set the people apart from the pagans. What is the first law in the Ten Commandments? You will have no other gods before me. Literally, no other gods in my face. Hang on a sec, I gotta turn down the heater. It suddenly occurred to me that you were probably hearing the little heater fan that was warming me up. It's warm enough in the house now, and the heating bills are outrageous. It's cold. It's been like 40 degrees overnight, and some days it didn't even get past the 50s. That's Fahrenheit. It's like, well, I think 40 degrees Fahrenheit is about 5 Celsius. It's, it's June. We're supposed to have heat. And they have it in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada, and Colorado. But here on the coast, well, 100 miles in from the coast, it's cold. Anyway, that's my thought. that God knew that there were transgressions going on, and there were still some Nephilim in the Holy Land. So he ordered his people from the Mount Sinai, you will not be like the pagans. And by the way, the Israelites did not just rush into the land and kill everybody. God ordered them to leave certain people alone. The descendants of Jacob's brother Esau and the descendants of Lot had already driven the Nephilim out of their territory, and they were not to touch them. They could ask for safe passage, but if they were denied, they had to go around, and they did. They were not to attack any of the people who had already driven the Nephilim out of their land. Now, Nephilim apparently means giants, and we don't know. Torah, what are you doing? Oh, go ahead. Chewing on my neck pillow. You aren't going OUT until I'm done here. Anyway, even if the giants were between 6 and 7 feet tall, they would qualify as giants. Even today, most men are not 6 feet tall. They're shorter than that. I mean, people talk about how tall and imposing Philip K. Dick was. He was 5 foot, almost 5'11", not quite. So a good inch and more shorter than 6 feet. I think it was his personality that was kind of imposing when he wanted to be. Most of the time he was more meek, almost shy, and yet once he sat down with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, he would talk for hours and get animated and opinionated. I put too much sugar in the coffee. Let's see, Quintia is here. Let's see. Okay, Torah, one of your adoring fans says hi. Oh, the tip of the tail is flopping. And she's purring, but it's the I'm mad at you purr. She's huge. She's freaking huge. Yeah, you are. Hello. Oh, she squinted at me. Oh, that's kitty kisses. So anyway, we got done with Galatians, not the whole chapter, but why then the law? If the law doesn't save you, why the law? Well, to make sure his people didn't start worshiping pagan gods. Wow. Pagan gods are real. At least that's what I believe. They just are not. They're gods with a little g. In English, we call them all angels, um, all the heavenly host, good and bad. Lucifer is an angel, Satan is an angel, Michael is an angel, and so on and so forth. Well, that's very limited or limiting. Uh, oh, cat hair in my eyelashes. Thank you, Tora. Cutie. Um, Angel just means messenger, it's a job. Any angel can do that job, and even human beings can be angels delivering messages. I forget exactly where, but somewhere in the New Testament it says to, well, if a stranger's at your door, let him in and feed him dinner, basically, something like that, because you might be entertaining an angel unawares. In other words, um, feeding an angel without knowing it. So that's to encourage charity, but it's also just a good thing to do. Oh man, the chat room. I hate that my view of the chat room is white letters on a black background. They're hard for me to read that way. But anyway, um, we need more words for these heavenly beings. Uh, in Second Temple literature, between the Babylonian exile and the second destruction of the temple in 70 AD, that's Second Temple literature. There are all kinds of terms for these beings. There's watchers, there's sons of God. Let's see. Oh, and for the bad ones, bastard spirits. At Sequentia asks, didn't Abraham do just that? Unknowingly fed a couple of angels? Well, some preachers say that he knew they were angels. Hi, Vika, and you missed Galatians chapter 3. But yeah, it's possible that he didn't know they were angels, and they came to his camp, and he rushed to Sarah's tent and told her, make dinner for these guests, and he offered to wash their feet. That was important. In those days, most people walked everywhere and their feet got dirty. So it was important to wash your feet before you come into the house or the tent in Abraham's case. Anyway, they came to tell him that God was going to destroy Sodom, and Abraham asked, well, if you can find 50 good men there, will God still destroy Sodom? And he was told, no, not if there are 50 good men there. Now, Abraham knew that Lot was living there. And then Abraham asked God, well, will you spare Sodom for the sake of 10 good men or righteous men? And the answer was yes, we will spare Sodom for the sake of 10 righteous men. But apparently, Abraham didn't ask if they would spare Sodom for the sake of one good man, his nephew Lot. And God did not spare Sodom, but he did spare Lot. And Lot still didn't want to give up the luxury of life in a city. So he said, "Can I go to this other town? It's a small city. Can I be safe there?" So they allowed Lot and his family to move to this small town. But after a while, God had to destroy that town as well. So the angels took Lot and his daughters to the hills, to a cave, to be safe from the destruction. And what followed was really um, X rated. But Lot's daughters had children and they became uh, large tribes with territory in Canaan, in the Holy Land. And Joshua, during the wars of the Israelites against the pagans, Lot's descendants and the descendants of Jacob's brother Esau were not to be bothered. Don't you? God said, "I will not give you their land." And he said they already drove out the Nephilim from their land. I think the Palestinians today are just a bunch of refugees from various tribes. So they could be descendants of Lot or Esau or, oh, come on, Abraham's other son, Ishmael. Or they could be Turkish or Armenian. Well, probably not Armenian, but and they could be from North Africa. You just can't really know because of all the intermarriage nowadays. Some of them might have some European ancestry. But they seem to be united by the faith of Islam, although I'm not sure I can trust what I hear on the news. So much of it is fake news. By the way, I did start a bit late today. I was watching a YouTube video of a Senate hearing, waiting for it to end, and then I suddenly realized that it was live and it wasn't going to end for some time. It was about the Durham report. They were interviewing John Durham in a Senate hearing. One of the committees, and I don't remember which one. Thank you, at Sequentia. Comment in the chat. Not to trust the news, I assume. Uh, Okay. Anyway, one of the senators, a Democrat, talked about all the right-wing news media, a conspiracy theory pushed by the far right news media. Most of our media are far left. It's just either extreme bothers me. But I still stand on my statement that some conspiracy theories are true. A conspiracy, by the way, doesn't require a vast, you know, huge number of people. All it takes is two people. Uh-oh, I just realized this was the peace sign during the Vietnam era, but apparently in England it's like the middle finger. It just means peace. And right now it means the number 2. Oh, maybe that's why it's a bad word. Number 2. I don't know. Anyway, it's the middle finger. All you need for a conspiracy is 2 people conspiring, and they can be conspiring to do something good, like let's have a surprise party for somebody. Oh, Beacon says giving the 2 fingers came from the days of archery. Oh, you would pull back the string on the bow with 2 fingers. Ah, interesting. Well, England won many battles because they had skilled archers. The bow and arrow were the guided missiles of our time, or their time. Wow. Learn something every day. Well, when President Nixon was touring Europe, he was doing the peace sign with both hands. When it's like this, it's V for victory, but he was doing peace while riding around in an open limousine. And he didn't realize he was giving them the middle finger. Or maybe he did. Let's see. Oh, the pub game of darts was invented to improve skill. Huh, interesting. Thank you, Beacon. Oh, hi, KP. In the chat, let's see. KP says the King of France ordered that any captured English or Welsh archers would have their index and middle fingers chopped off. So they gave the 2-fingered salute to say, "Come and take them." Ah, Molon Labe in Greek. Wow. Yeah, that seems to ring a bell. I mean, spark a memory of a documentary that I watched about warfare in the Middle Ages. Yeah, in I think it was Sparta in one of the wars, probably the Persians. The invading army said, "Lay down your weapons," and the Spartans said, "Molon labe, come and take them." Of course, if you lived in Sparta, you wouldn't be afraid of death. The life there was so awful. Once children were weaned, no longer nursing, they were on their own and they had to steal food or go hungry. And if they got caught, they were not punished for stealing food, they were punished for getting caught. And even the king and queen slept on wooden boards, not soft mattresses, which is probably why Helen decided to take off with the Prince of Troy, which caused a war. But interestingly, the Greeks, who were supposedly going to Troy to rescue Helen, who had been kidnapped by Paris, they stopped along the way at various coastal towns and looted and pillaged. Reminds me of a scene in one of the it's an English movie. Those comedians. I'm blanking. Uh, the guys with the spam chant. I don't like spam. Those guys in one of their movies. Oh, Monty Python. One of their movies. Now I forgot where I was going with that. Thank you, at Sequentia. Monty Python. Um, but where was I going with it? Oh yeah, Helen of Troy, Paris. Oh, it was here. This little town is burning down, and the commander or lieutenant or captain, whatever, says to his underling, "I've told you before. First pillage, then burn. Pillage first, then burn." Okay, says, like Sparta, some industrial northern English cities are like that today. They are so poor, parents tie pork chops around the kids so the dogs will play with them. Well, that's weird. That's how do poor people get pork chops? Speaking of which, I'm still having terrible trouble. I can't digest pork chops. I can't digest beef. Any kind of beef, a steak, a roast, hamburger, can't do it. And now it's getting tougher and tougher to digest pork, except for bacon, which is mostly fat. It isn't like Canadian bacon or even English bacon, it's mostly fat. I have trouble with protein. I do best with fish, but I can't eat some chicken without sitting on the toilet for 2 or 3 days. Deacon says, speaking of Monty Python, John Cleese refuses to promote woke stuff and is being shunned by Hollywood. Well, I read somewhere on the internet, not Wikipedia, but an actual news site, uh, one that covers movies and TV shows, entertainment or something. I can't remember the name of the medium. One channel is a medium. Two or more TV channels are media, and we're losing our language. They just say media for one TV channel. That's wrong. Anyway, they're saying that Hollywood is leaving California. They have lower expenses in other states, and the regulations are more commonsensical. They want to censor the trans scene from Life of Brian. I haven't seen more than just clips of Life of Brian. Didn't know there was one. Call me Loretta. That's cute at Sequentia. Well, I have no problem with trans people in general, as long as they're adults. But I do have a problem with any kind of pride. Pride is a sin. Pride cometh before a fall. There's a UFO scene. Now I'm going to have to find a way to watch The Life of Brian. The thing is, the BBC wants way too much money. I want to watch one show, and they want me to pay much more than the British pay at home and subscribe to a whole year of everything they've got, and it's expensive. I don't know what the rate is at the moment, but you can pay $10 to watch one episode of one show, like Doctor Who. Sometimes it's more than that. Anyway, I quit watching Doctor Who. I have no problem with a woman doctor, but that actress was not right for the role. It's a shame. She's a great actress, but that was not the right role for her. Let's see. Oh, the chat room's getting cute. Witta says it sounded to me like a mutual shunning. Cleese excused himself from speaking at Cambridge when the other speaker was banned back a couple years ago. No, VPN, the problem with a VPN is if they are watching me, and they probably are, using a VPN will make me seem even more suspicious and they'll really watch me. Besides, using the VPN is probably not quite legal if you're using it to watch a show that you're supposed to pay for. But I can find more YouTube clips. When I see Monty Python, I think of that show, TV show. I don't think it was called Monty Python. Might have been. Well, yeah, of course, Faulty Towers, but no, I'm thinking of the comedy show. I can't come up with any details of it, but it was just comedy skits, not a well, maybe scripted, but not not an episode, just a variety show. It might have been called Monty Python. But yeah, one of the Monty Python guys actually created Faulty Towers. I forgot its name. I'm terrible at names. But it was they had Blamage. And I had, first off, I couldn't spell it from the way they said it. John Cleese. Thank you, at Sequentia. John Cleese created Faulty Towers. It's hilarious. But no, they would have these blamages coming out of the woods in en masse and attacking people. And the way the British swallow half the letters in every word, I couldn't figure out how to look up blamage. They're almost as bad as the French, you English. Look at Worcestershire sauce. Worcestershire. Worcester. Now they just say Worcester. They don't even say Worcestershire. Well, blamage turned out to be blanc mange, white food. It's a white pudding, like an American pudding, not a bread, just a thickened cream and sugar and some flavorings. But it took me forever to find out what blamage was because of the way the English pronounce it. Okay. I might like the goodies. Oh, the banana splits. I wasn't too keen on the banana splits. I remember them in the 70s. The goodies. That's a show in England, I guess. Anyway, when I hear about Monty Python, I always think of the blamage. It must have been called Monty Python, but it was a weekly variety show. You know, we get the British shows here when they're 10 years old. Our public broadcasting system will show things like Are You Being Served and Faulty Towers when they're, 10 years after they first aired. I guess that they become less expensive to license after 10 years. Yeah. Monty Python is very irreverent, like the Holy Grail movie. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. But they're irreverent in a kind and gentle way. They aren't just making fun of religion. They're kind of laughing with Christians, not at them. Oh, that Sequentia, by coincidence, is trying to code in Python, and we're talking about Monty Python, which is where Python got its name. Interesting. Yes, Are You Being Served was very cheeky at Sequentia. That's a very British way to put it. Oh, the British usually have better quality programming than we do. They just don't have as much programming. It seems like here quantity rules over quality. Hi, Oswald. Maybe they're laughing with and at Christians, and it's possible to do so. I never heard of Carry On. That must be another British show. I did watch the first two seasons of, come on, ay, 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 um, the soap opera. Why am I blank on it? I had the whole thing a minute ago. The one where I can't even come up with the word. Well, the daughter has to marry an heir to the inheritance because only a man can inherit. Oh, hell. Not well, yeah, I like Miss Marple, but what was that soap opera? The title was The Name of the Estate, and I remember saying they shouldn't call it that because that's part of a church, but I can't remember the word. Dang it. Um, Downton Abbey. Thank you, Beacon. Yeah. Abbey is part of a church. Your secular estate shouldn't be called an abbey, and the mansion didn't look like an abbey. An abbey is supposedly where the abbot can be found. Anyway, first two seasons. Well, first they threw my favorite character in prison. I guess the actor had another job and had to be absent. And then they killed off my second favorite character. Turns out he didn't want to renew. He was done with that show. And the third season was unwatchable. So I didn't watch it. Oh, Beacon is always okay, I'll just read it aloud. When you guys try and pronounce our place names, always makes me smile. Example, Hereford is Hayford or Harryford. I don't say Harryford. I say Hereford because it's a type of cattle, and I've heard it documentaries about Hereford cattle. But you say it Heford or Hayford? More like Harryfud? Yeah. Well, you swallow half the letters in every word. But you're not as bad. The English are not as bad as the Welsh. Their place names are impossible. If I ever have to drive around in Wales, I'll write down the street name because I can't pronounce it. Like something like HUD will have 11 letters to spell it, and most of them are consonants that you don't pronounce. But I kind of enjoy that. I'm not really bashing the Welsh. I am amused. Yeah. Now, the worst I've heard for Worcestershire sauce was Worcester sauce. But it kind of makes sense. Welsh is almost like Hebrew according to Jewish scholars. That's interesting. And I might look into that. Wow. Well, the sun's still shining, but it's still cold. It's about 50 Fahrenheit, which is not much higher than 0 centigrade, but maybe 5 or 6 C. I don't feel like looking it up. But it's like not freezing, but nowhere near to warm. Now, ordinarily in the winter, we get used to it and we consider 50 degrees warm, but not in June. It's summer, for crying out loud. Unless you happen to be in Australia, in which case it's winter. Or South America, anywhere below the equator. But I wanted to talk about Nephilim. Now, nowadays, the fundamentalist and evangelical Christians will try to tell you that the virtuous sons of Seth married the evil daughters of Cain. It doesn't make sense. For one thing, did Seth have any beautiful daughters? Did Cain have any virtuous sons? Cain sinned and God cursed him, but he still was faithful to God, even after he killed Abel. And sons of God just doesn't fit. Human beings are not sons of God in that time. When Jesus redeemed us, he gave us the opportunity to become sons of God. But this Nephilim thing was before the flood of Noah. And sons of God is a way to refer to this heavenly host, the angels and archangels and why have I forgotten the words? The word that's coming to my head is a word for a Jewish sect, Sephardic. That's not it. Yeah, seraphim, thank you. Seraphim, and there's another word like that. Anyway, sons of God are the heavenly host, and the daughters of men are not just daughters of Cain. It's literally daughters of Adam. All the women, all the human women. And we see this in Greek mythology. For example, Heracles. In Latin, it's Hercules. He's the son of the god Zeus with a human mother. Thank you, Vikan. Ophanim, seraphim, teraphim. Yeah, and there's another word I'm just not, it just isn't clicking. Cherubim. Cherubs. That's what I was stuck on. And cherubim are not these cute little babies with wings that we see everywhere. They're actually tall, armed warrior. angels or spirit beings. Anyway, it's much more likely that some mixing of different species happened. The sons of God being part of the heavenly host, and the daughters of men being human. Now, there's all kinds of controversy about just how tall the giants were, but I am not convinced that the Nephilim, the giants, were the offspring of the sons of God and daughters of men. The first 4 verses of Genesis chapter 6 do not specifically say that that they gave birth to the Nephilim. It just says there were Nephilim in the earth in those days. Now, I think Nephilim is actually a pun. Apparently, it isn't even a Hebrew word. They borrowed it from their neighbors. I forget which language it would be. Well, anyway, it does mean giant, but I think it's a pun because it's so very close to the Hebrew word for fallen. Anyway, you'll see claims that the giants were 40 feet tall, and others saying no, they were 5'8". They were just taller than the 5'4" Israelites. But I think it was King Og, his funeral bed, which in second temple times they still had it on display. That bed was 14 feet long, so Og was probably 12 feet tall, and that's awfully tall. He could just rest his arms on the roof of an ordinary house today. Thank you, Et Sequentia. Yeah, it's very close to the Hebrew for fallen. The vowels are different. I think fallen is nephulah, something like that. But yeah, there were giants in the world, and maybe they were the offspring, maybe not. But they were a problem, especially for David. David put 6 stones in his bag to face Goliath. Why 6 stones? Didn't he have faith in God that the first stone would hit its mark? Well, yeah, but Goliath had 5 brothers who might not take it kindly that David had just killed their brother. And interestingly, David then took Goliath's sword and cut off the giant's head. The belief was that if you did not behead the fallen giant, he'd spring back to life, and then he'd be really angry. Funny though, I don't see anything in the Bible about giant women. Maybe they just didn't think it was important. Oh, Ed Sequentia says Nafal is fallen. Yeah, so Nifula would be an adjective or a noun, one or the other. And Viken says legend has it that Goliath's head was kept at Golgotha. I guess that's possible. I think Golgotha was the place where there was this cave at the base of the mountain, and they called that cave the gates of hell. All over the ancient world, there was this belief that hell was below the earth, and it was where dead people went. There's a scene after Achilles has been killed in the Trojan War. The Greeks need to consult him, so they find the cave and they go down to see the spirit of the dead Achilles. He isn't being punished in any way, he's just bored out of his mind because there's nothing to do. They're all shades, shadows. And Achilles actually says, I'd rather be a dirt farmer on the earth than a king in hell, in Hades. And farmers were like the lowest of the low in Greek society. Would be almost as bad as being a beggar with your tin cup. That's how unhappy he was, but he was not in being consumed by flames or any of that, no torture of any kind. But it was not fun, not a good existence. Now let's see, Viken thinks the outer darkness and cast out place is outer space. Well, the bad angels might be cast out there, but it specifically says in Isaiah that Lucifer was thrown down to the Eretz, and Eretz can be the earth or hell. It's most often used for the earth, the soil, the dirt where you land. Anyway, the place of the dead was not necessarily a place of punishment. Everybody went there until God released them. And I should do more reading in the New Testament. I don't remember whether it's tradition or scripture that Jesus went down into hell for 3 days after the resurrection and preached to the souls in hell. Well, I suppose you could believe that the place of the dead is under the earth, because what do we do with the bodies? We bury them. Oh, Viken thinks it's in Peter. I think there's 3 letters named Peter. One of them talks about the bad angels being in chains, very much like the whole book of Jude, which is only 1 chapter, chained in eerie darkness. But it doesn't say they're being burned in hell. It doesn't say they're being tortured. They're just locked up real good because they're bad. They're in prison. I think the idea of the flames of hell came from Revelation, where the evil beings are tossed into the lake of fire. They're instantly burned up and gone forever, not burning forever. Whatever hell is, I don't want to go there. Vegan. First Peter 3:10. Jason's back. Oh, 3:19. Well, let me see if I can get that without losing my connection, my internet. Oh, that's the chapter about wives and husbands. Interesting. Let's see. Suffering for righteousness' sake. Here we go. I'll start at 18. For Christ also suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison, that'd be hell, because they formerly did not obey when God's patience waited in the days of Noah while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is, 8 persons, were brought safely through water. Baptism, which corresponds to this, now saves you, not as a removal of dirt from the body, but as an appeal to God for a good conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, with angels, authorities, and powers having been subjected to him. And as Paul says somewhere, I'm one of the Corinthians, I think. Hi, Howard. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Those are spirit beings. Come on, evil computer. I have trouble with the keyboard. There we go. Ephesians 6. I always think it's Corinthians, and it always turns out to be Ephesians. Thank you, Vegan. So the one about seeing through a glass darkly, but then face to face, must be in the Corinthians. I don't remember which one. There are 2 Corinthians, first and second. But yeah, something in high places. Oh, Vican got it for me. 1 Corinthians 13. You see, when Daniel talks about the Prince of Persia, he's really talking about the spiritual being that controls the human Prince of Persia. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers. I think it's wickedness in high places, something like that. They're the bad members of the heavenly host who will be cast out either down to the earth or out into space. Oh, Chuck Missler has a great teaching on Genesis 6. Yes, Jason. It's been years since I watched that, but yeah, he does. Wow. I can't help thinking of Gene Scott. the TV preacher who was always saying, "Send me more money. I need a new Cadillac. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not feeding the orphans. I'm buying a Cadillac." But he would say, for example, Enoch walked with God, and Enoch was not, for God took him. And then Gene Scott would follow that with, "Where? Where did he take him?" Oh, Copeland, Kenneth Copeland and his jet planes. You see, where many TV preachers failed was they lied. Not that they bought all kinds of luxury, but they lied about it. We need Bibles for people who don't have them, translated into their language, and then he'd buy a car or a jet or whatever. Yeah. In fact, Gene Scott, Pat Robertson passed away. I remember that now. Gene Scott never even filed for a not to make his church a nonprofit organization. He went ahead and paid taxes like any other corporation. Okay. Jason had a typo somewhere. I can't find it. I don't see where you. Yeah, Jude 6 tells what happens to the fallen angels. Jude is one single chapter, and it's a very interesting book, and it's the last one in the New Testament. Oh, before Revelation, which I consider actually a separate book in itself. It's so huge. At one time, because I was sent to a Baptist elementary school, I had to memorize all the 66 books of the Bible, the titles of them, in order, and write them down on a test. Well, I kind of vaguely remember most of them. The first 5 are easy: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Let's see, then there's 1st and 2nd Kings. Then there's Chronicles, but I don't remember whether there's 1 or 2 Chronicles. For the New Testament, well, the first 4 are easy. They're the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And then I'm kind of lost until you get to 1st, 2nd, 3rd Peter, John, Jude, not John, something Jude, Revelation. Oh, yeah, it's letters of John, I think. See, I want to put John in there somehow. Oh, a church congregation in Michigan gave Kenneth Copeland a 38 Mustang airplane. Isn't that a military aircraft? Seems to me the Mustang was a fighter plane, not a jet. But the church refused to help my friend financially, Jason says, when his family needed it the most, but they had enough money to give Kenneth Copeland an airplane. Uh-huh. Well, I call myself a Baptist, but there are at least half a dozen different kinds of Baptist. I'm going to have to ask the pastor of the local church which kind he is. I don't know. I almost never go to church, but he's on YouTube now. He usually podcasts his sermons live on YouTube. Oh, Benny Hinn gave heroin to the elder that died. I never watched Benny Hinn. Ah, that's the TV show I was trying to think. I started watching Benny Hinn once because I read it wrong and thought it was Benny Hill. Oh, The Summer of Love, 2010. The Summer of Love that I know of was in the 60s in San Francisco in the Haight-Ashbury district. And it wasn't really love, it was free sex. A lot of babies were born a year later. Well, less than a year. Same kind of spirit, Benny Hinn, Benny Hill. Yeah, but Benny Hill was more entertaining. Benny Hill had the blamage, the pack of white puddings attacking people. I can hear his tune in my head. There was this tune, kind of like an Irish jig, that he would play during the skits. Oswald plays yakety sax on repeat behind all of Joseph Farrell's live streams. I don't know what yakety sax is. I guess it's a saxophone. He got the P-38 Mustang, huh? Yeah, that's a military aircraft. And everybody clapped and cheered. Yeah, there are too many churches who are not really religious. They might clothe themselves in religion, but they have no real faith in anything but money. Deacon says Benny Hill was great in the movie The Italian Job. And Oswald says yakety sax is the saxophone tune from Benny Hill. Oh, then I know exactly what it sounds like. Well, I often disagree with Joseph Farrell's conclusions, but he does bring a lot of information that, frankly, it would be difficult or impossible for us to get, because most of it is behind paywalls or in very expensive books. Plus, we'd have to really dig to find it. Oh, Etsy Quintia has an earworm. It isn't just Oswald who did it to you. I'm guilty too. Mea culpa. But it's been running in my head, so I had to share it. I'm fascinated by Joseph Farrell's proposition that the Great Pyramid was a weapon. Oswald has no regrets. Okay. Um, Yeah. There's Christianity and then there's churchianity. I think I got that word from Joseph Farrell. Churchianity. I do know that the church that I go to does not demand money. They pass the plate. Ooh, Crowleyanity. Most people call him Crowley, but he insisted it was Crowley. And it was his name. Aleister Crowley was a very complex personality. And apparently, he has some small connection to a series of deaths, suspicious deaths, in Southern California's Inland Empire around just a couple years before World War II broke out. I think it was 1913, but I don't hold me to that. I might be wrong. He was riding on a train through this area and might have stopped off. You can learn more about that from Walter Bosley's first book in his trilogy about the Inland Empire called Empire of the Wheel. The first book is about those suspicious murders. Probably murders. Well, one was definitely a murder. One was called I think two were called suicides. And then some children were poisoned, so that was murder. I suppose that's one of the reasons why our parents always told us, do not take candy from strangers. Okay, I'm at the point where I have to recycle some coffee. And while I'm at it, I'll find Walter Bosley's book to show you. So hang on, I'll be right back. Uh, I'm headed back. Let's see, the book should be on the bookshelf over here behind the floor lamp. Uh-oh. Yeah. I own 4 of his books and I put them all together again after some helpful person rearranged all my books so that they were a total mess. Oh, I got free cat hair and spider webs. Nice. Ugh. Time to do some dusting, I guess. Empire of the Wheel. by Walter Bosley and Richard B. Spence. It was a collaboration. The subtitle is An Investigation of Occult Espionage and Murder. Uh, the Masons seem to be involved somehow. One of the men who died was a Mason. That female figure is Hecate. Hecate is generally thought of as the goddess of witches, but there's more to her than that. The bald guy, I'm not sure, might be Crowley. Anyway, in San Bernardino primarily. Oh, it's signed by the author. It says, "This is the biggest case of my career. I still haven't solved it. Maybe you can." Well, I don't think I can, but I was able to give Walter a couple books that might be helpful. It's a very long book, over 400 pages. Some black and white photographs. Here we go. And the beginning of the investigation was related to Cora Stanton, buried in a local cemetery across from St. Bernardine Hospital. I forget the name of the cemetery, but I do know that Wyatt Earp's father and I think one of his brothers are buried there. Wyatt Earp is not, but some of the Earp family are buried there. But this is in the Potter's Field, the old Potter's Field, the original. Cora Stanton, apparently the people who buried her didn't really know who she was. That was a guess based on flimsy evidence. Now, Walter thinks she must have been the girlfriend of, I think, the Sundance Kid, either Butch Cassidy or the Sundance Kid. And he believes that she was actually an agent for the Secret Service. Oswald says Bosley's stream on Montana weirdness that I caught a portion of has disappeared. I'm wondering if he hit on sensitive stuff or just decided to pull it. I don't know. I think maybe because he's working on a book, he doesn't want to give away too much ahead of the book. But I can't say for sure. I haven't talked to him about it. We need to pray for Walter. He's been ill. I don't know the details, and I wouldn't be free to tell them if I knew. I got to refill my water. Be right back. Oh, shuffle, shuffle. Tora has the right idea. She's taking a nap. She heard her name. I don't know what that's about. Oh, praying. I got it. Oswald is praying. So something looks like an oscilloscope image of a crystal broadcast like ELF waves. Humph. I guess you're referring to the Montana weirdness. Oh, the Schumann resonance, Oswald says. Interesting. They shut it down? They shut what down? Bosley Stream? Oh, man. Yeah, see, Walter Bosley was some kind of agent investigating things. You know, not like your secret agent man pulling out his Luger and shooting people, just investigating things. So when he was doing some research in a local library, the librarian steered him toward the story of Cora Stanton because she thought it was um, really strange how the woman died. You know, more than 100 years ago now. They said she drowned, but she had poison in her stomach, and um, no ID, no purse, no money. Um, and all the labels had been cut out of her clothing, so they couldn't even trace where she came from. If you had labels in the clothing, you'd have some clues from the brand, especially back then. We didn't have like J.C. Penney and the May Company. Or anyway, most clothing was made by small uh, businesses that actually made them kind of by hand. I mean, they had sewing machines, but they didn't have big factories and machines doing everything. They'd measure the person, usually, and make it to fit for each customer. Oh, I miss those days. Of course, it was expensive, but a lot of people made their own. Anyway, if she drowned, why was she also poisoned? And who poisoned her? Did she poison herself and jump in the lake? Or did someone push her when the poison didn't kill her? Or maybe the person who drowned her didn't know she'd already been poisoned. Or maybe the poison made her pass out and fall into the water and drown. I forget what kind of poison. Probably cyanide. And if it's a small enough amount, it can take a while to kill you. Anyway, she had visited a doctor's office, and while in the waiting room, she stood up and said something like, "He is not here," and she left. Howard, I have not caught kittens or mama cat, but I'm working on it. Once I do catch them, then I have to figure out what to do with them because all of our shelters are full. All these idiots got kittens during COVID, and now that COVID's over, oh, I don't want that cat. It isn't a cute kitten anymore, and they're dumping them. They are very cute kitties and might be able to find homes easily. I don't know. We'll see. But both the county animal shelter and all the charitable organizations are just jammed full and begging for foster homes for these animals. And I can't keep them. They're very likely all three female, and the mother is female. And I cannot afford to get them spayed so they won't make more babies. And the available charitable assistance is quite limited, partly because they've had so many cats dumped on them that they had to get spayed and neutered. Neutering a male is much less expensive than getting a female spayed. Oh, that touches on one of my triggers. You do not get your cat spaded. When you dig in the dirt with a shovel, you have spaded it. You spay a female cat or dog, spay, and in the past tense, they are spayed, spayed. When I was teaching English, I actually had a student argue with me about that. Anyway, wow. Uh, Deacon, I don't think that's true. I'm not going to say it out loud, though. I'm, by the way, very disappointed. I thought oxen were a different breed of cattle. An ox is a bull that has been neutered. Oxen were often used instead of horses to draw carts. A place called Job's Peak. They had an ox that was apparently not named but well liked. And after dragging the cart up the mountain, they'd unhook Job from the cart, and he would rest in that spot. So it's Job's Peak. It is up pretty high, but it's flat on top. Yeah, an ox is what we would call a steer. Yeah, Steer. Oh well. Anyway, oh, see what else is interesting here. It's a humongous book, but it has these photos. Oh, and there's a bit about Harry Houdini being allegedly suffered alleged food poisoning just a few months before he died under Circumstances that indicate he had been poisoned by angry spiritualists. Okay, so they said it was food poisoning, but angry spiritualists might have poisoned him for revealing their frauds. Is that Masonic? No, I don't think so. It's something else. It's his own, I guess. It hurts my arms to hold the book up for very long, but I know I get irritated when someone holds something up to the camera but not long enough for me to really see it. Oh, the carousel at Disneyland. Walter Bosley talks about that quite often. Is that the one at Disneyland? No, this is Orbita Springs Park and Berkeley's Tilden Park. Okay, so these are not the Disneyland carousel, but they're carousels that seem to have some relevance to spooky things happening. Okay, that book is heavy. The weirdest language I've ever heard is the Cockney rhyming slang. You just have to memorize it. It's perfectly good English words, but like if you want to talk about going up the stairs, instead of stairs, you say something like nobody cares. There's no relationship of the meaning. Yeah, Cockney is great fun, Beacon says. Ooh, place and meat is feet. Apples and pears is stairs. Okay, yeah, but there's nothing to grab onto logically. You just memorize it. It's kind of like anatomy. In anatomy class, memorize names of the bones and muscles and organs. You don't try to understand them. Not in anatomy class. But things like multiplication tables in math or spelling in language, they actually make some sense, usually. They call 500 quid a moki. Okay. I don't see how that rhymes, but okay. It's Cockney slang. When teaching young children how to spell and how to read, they always start with cat, hat, rat, mat, and so forth. And cat happens to be what we call a snark word. You really want to spell it with a K, but it's CAT, not KAT. Unless you're in Germany, Katze spelled with a K. But we got our word from the French, chat, CHAT, and I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, but French nearly killed my academic career. Well, Viken, if coppers means the police, Raja kind of makes sense. Anyway, good old William the Conqueror ruined the English language with his Norman French. It wasn't even the French of the monarchy in France, in Paris. It was a mixture of Danish and French. And all the upper classes of England learned to speak it because they wanted to be included in the royal court. But the common people kept on speaking English. But when the elite started writing, because you had to be elite to be able to afford and read and write, because of the influence of the Norman conquerors, French. So they spelled cap most often with a C, but spelling wasn't standardized till quite recently. Let's see, the Black Country dialect is still in use from Saxon days and is almost the same as German in some sentences, Beacon says. Well, I've found that except for the letters we don't have, so I have to look them up and find out what they are, how they're pronounced. I can read quite a bit of Dutch, Danish, and even Swedish because I studied German. And the Saxon days, that'd probably be the Danish language that the Black Country dialect came from. They say that English came from Danish, but I can't read Beowulf. Supposedly the first book in the English language, but it's really in Danish. You know, the story of the monster that kept breaking into the hall and killing people. I think I don't think Beowulf is the name of the monster. I think it's the name of the warrior who kills him. I haven't read it in decades. Oh, when I get off the line, I have to go outside and see if Amazon actually delivered my package. They claim they delivered it yesterday around noon, but I never saw it and I went out and looked for it. So I'll check again this morning. If it isn't there, I have to tell Amazon I didn't receive it. And I'm out of cat food. They were supposed to bring me some. Well, anyway, we're a few seconds away from 2 hours. Well, it's United Parcel Service that says they delivered it. I'd like to know where they delivered it. I have my address prominently displayed in two places out front. One on the front of my house and then one farther forward on the fence. Yeah, I had a couple issues. One was a package arrived damaged and it crushed the container of cat treats and they spilled out all over the inside of the cardboard box. It had been packed underneath a heavy item. They replaced it for free. It took a little extra digging because the first page said, well, we can't do anything about this product. So I had to chat with a someone who was probably AI and not a human. I wasn't allowed to type my answers. I had to select from a list. Oh, hi, Niche. Hi, Niche. Niche interviewed me recently, recorded it. I'll let you know when it's live or when you can listen to it. Uh, yeah, I know what that means. Oh, it isn't quite the word mouth. It's a two-word adjective and noun word actually, but it means mouth. Anyway, I'm over 2 hours now. I will be on Nisha's podcast, audio only, sometime in the future because she recorded it. I can't remember the name of the channel, but you're free to post it if you wish, Niche. Yeah, Niche was. Oh, Niche is not the one. You're not who I thought you were. You're the cricket person. I the one I'm talking about is NIISH. The chat is hard for me to see clearly. Niche interviewed me. Don't go, it's always a blast. Yeah, but it's 2 hours. And where did I put that? Yeah, I've used up all my internet. I'm podcasting on data now. And it's almost 11 in the morning here, which is about the time when Verizon decides that someone else has priority for the limited bandwidth that they provide. Anyway, hi Niche. Cricket World Cup qualifiers are going on. USA has lost 2-2. Yeah, Niche, the US always loses. We aren't very good at cricket. But come over here and play American baseball, or better yet, basketball. Um, we've gone through quite a bit of stuff today. If you don't have any of Walter Bosley's books, I highly recommend the first volume of the Empire of the Wheel trilogy. He writes as an investigator, and he offers his speculations, but he isn't adamant that he's right. He just has his suspicions based on the evidence. And then there's the Esoteric Napoleon, Volume 1. There will be a Volume 2 about Napoleon. And what Walter said in his podcasts, which I didn't know, I had to fact check him. Napoleon started one war when a part of Spain violated a treaty they had signed. All the other wars were attacks on Napoleon. And I always thought Napoleon chose to invade Russia, but apparently Russia was attacking him first. Niche is in India, Vegan. Well, the USA cricket team captain is Indian. And Deacon says, so is our prime minister. I've lost track of who is prime minister now. I know that Boris Johnson had to give up, or I don't know if he stepped down or they voted him out. There's so much going on in the world. And if I talk about it, I'm a racist or a homophobe or anything I say will incite violence. So I give up. I'm looking out the window. There's a car stopped in front of my house, but apparently out in the street. It's not familiar to me, but it needs a muffler badly. Oh, there's two cars in a row. Don't know what they are, but they're white compact cars. Now there's a third car and it's red. One of them at least. There's a fourth car. And a fifth car. It's a whole bunch of people. There must be a detour on the main road, Lake Drive. So they keep stopping, probably because the first car in line is at the stop sign. Oh, there is some road work going on, but that location wouldn't cause this to become the detour. Oh well, whatever. So anyway, see, it's mostly Edison Company taking down dead trees because of California's crazy conservation rules. The Forest Service and other agencies have not been allowed to take down dead and dying trees, which is why every once in a while we have a huge fire running through the forest. For some time, they weren't even allowed to clear the brush, and it's gotten so bad that the fire department has to do controlled burns because you can't just go out with a weed whacker. Anyway, Edison Company, the electricity supplier, is allowed to take down trees that are endangering the electrical lines and poles. Even if they aren't dead yet, they can at least trim the branches away. So my hat's off to Edison for doing such a good job, even though it means our electricity rates are going up and we're paying more. They're doing something to keep us safe. Don't let them tell you that global warming is causing our out of control fires. First, most of them are started by arson. Second, we have not been allowed to make the forest healthy by clearing dead trees and cutting down the dry brush. Sometimes the California Department of Transportation will have water trucks go along the side of the road and add water to the plants that are growing close to the road. But quite often you will see that a wildfire has jumped all the way across the freeway which is 3 or 4 lanes each way. So it'll jump across 6 or 8 lanes of concrete or asphalt to the other side because the brush on the side of the road has not been cleared. They weren't allowed to clear it. So if a car overheats and the driver pulls over into the turnout, the heat from the overheated car can set the brush on fire. Cute. Our forests have been mismanaged for far too long. Native Americans used to spend the summers in these mountains, and then they'd go to the desert for the winter. And every year when they left the mountain, they would set the brush on fire so that when they came back in the summer, they would not have huge wildfires because they had cleared the brush the easy way, and any dead or dying trees would also burn up and fall down, leaving less fuel for any major fires. And as long as the trees were healthy and the brush was cleared, they didn't have major fires in these mountains. But for decades, our Forest Service has not been allowed to cull trees that are dying or thin out the forest because there are too many trees for the land and other resources to support. It's very cold in these mountains in California. It's nowhere near as warm as normal for June. It might get as warm as 60 Fahrenheit, and it's supposed to be 80 or 90 Fahrenheit. It isn't. But in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Colorado, they have over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. They are in a nasty heat wave. Yeah, they want rural folks herded into 15-minute cities. I heard about that. A place where you can walk to everything you need. It's crazy. Why? I don't know, but our crazy governor wants to shove people into high-rise apartment buildings where you live in a box. If you're lucky, you have a window to let the sunshine in, but you probably can't open the window to let in fresh air. You're crowded. You have no garden, no dirt, no grass, no playground, no nothing. At Sequentia saw a hearing, possibly the Senate, where they said the government managed lands are badly managed in comparison to privately owned land. I I saw a House hearing in the House of Representatives, one of their committees. All these unelected bureaucrats sitting at their desk in their air-conditioned office in Washington, D.C., are trying to tell farmers and ranchers how to manage the environment. Scotland beat Ireland in cricket by 1 wicket. Wow. I don't know how you get a wicket, but I'll take your word for it. I know nothing about, well, almost nothing about cricket except what I saw on Midsummer Murders. Yeah, oh, Soylent Green might taste better than fried crickets. Yeah, they don't want us to eat. Well, apparently I can't eat beef and pork, but I can still eat chicken and fish without having serious trouble digesting it. Soylent Green and Idiocracy. It's been shown by actual on-ground investigation that the Bureau of Land Management land that is leased out to farmers and ranchers has a much healthier ecosystem than the land where nobody's allowed to touch it. Because farmers and ranchers know how to take care of the land and the wildlife and the plants that grow there. Witta says a park local to her is losing trees. It's obvious it's to get rid of the homeless, and they're working at it so hard they're turning it into what looks like a golf course. It's sad. Oh, one reason why there are so many homeless is that first, real wages have declined. Yeah, I think wages have increased by 3%, but inflation has been as high as 10%, and rents have more than doubled. If you don't own your home, you don't have a fixed monthly payment, the rent can skyrocket. And I can't blame the landlords because their taxes are higher. The utilities that they provide cost more. At the very least in California, the landlord has to pay for the water. In some cases, they have to pay for gas and electricity as well. And maintenance is more expensive. You have to pay more to fix things and keep them in good repair. Most of our food is at least 20% higher priced than before COVID. Okay. Oh my God. Witta says where she lives, a 3-bedroom apartment is $3,000 a month. Federal taxes went up so bad that one of the local homeowners was telling me it'd be an extra $1,000 for him. Oh, I don't want to brag, but I'm going to brag. I bought this house in 2004. My mortgage never seems to go down. It's stuck at $45,000. For insurance, taxes, and mortgage, it's a little more than $600 a month. Now, it is a tiny home. It's 400 square feet, 20 feet by 20 feet, plus a tiny mud porch that makes it slightly bigger than 400 feet. That's the size of the tiny homes that are being built for the homeless. But I can't afford to move out. It's $1,200 a month to rent a room. I don't have $1,200 a month. Now, Nietzsche wants the chat read. It's about wickets. They're like a baseball catch-out. When they are running, you can stump them, or while bowling, if the bowler hits the stumps, it's a wicket. Okay, and there are 10 wickets means 11 players in a team. Okay. And let's see. I don't even understand that, Beacon. I don't know what B of E is, but they warned that the house prices will lose 35% over the year, and interest rates will add 2,800 quid a year to the small homeowner, over 10,000 to the richest. Wow. Well, oh, I don't remember at Sequentia, I don't remember the mention of a wicket in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I read the first two of those books, and I haven't found the third one. I have a copy of So Long and Thanks Fish, but I didn't want to read it out of order. I've got to find book number 3 first. Oh, Bank of England. Yeah, well, if homes lose value, our property taxes go down, but not by as much as they ought to. They've been raising them as much as the law allows every year, a certain percentage of what they say is the value of your home. Okay, we're at 2 hours and 23 minutes, and I'm getting upset. Huh. Oh. Something to do with a cosmic wicket. I'm going to have to reread The Hitchhiker's Guide. I love that book. And it begins when the government wants to demolish Arthur's home to build a highway. And then the cosmic beings want to demolish the earth to make room for their highway. It's a lovely book. A laugh on every page, a good laugh. Oh, I think the one I'm missing is The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide has been relevant back to at least 50 years before the guy wrote it. Ah, Lord. I'm always anxious because my home is on a street that is double zoned, residential and commercial. And even though my entire block is all residential, all people's homes, the county wants to expand business up here, and they might decide that they have to take our homes by eminent domain so they can demolish them and build businesses. It's one of the reasons why I'm downsizing and giving away books and stuff. because it would take more than the biggest 30, well, it would take more than a 30-foot U-Haul to move all this stuff out of here. And I can't afford to buy another house. It would have to go into storage. I have things that other people left here, and I'm not tossing them out till I go through them because I have found cash and jewelry and all sorts of collectible things going through their boxes. I mean, they abandoned them over 10 years ago, so I don't think they're ever coming back for them, so they're mine. When I come across things that my son left here, I put them aside and give them to him when I see him. Everybody else, you haven't even called me or knocked on the door in 10 years. Go away. Oh, and my son called me on my birthday, and my brother and his wife called me on my birthday. And then Rhea Francis, who is a local, uh, very busy retired person, newspaper reporter, local historian, author, at Volunteers for Everything, took me to lunch at the Crestline Cafe, and it was awesome. The food and the service were just top notch. Treasures of the heathen, Deacon says. Yep. Yeah, we're all the unwashed masses, and the entitled elites want us to go away. And they just want a few to stay to provide them with servants, gardeners, cooks, parlor maids. Um, although they're working on getting robots to do that so they can kill all of us. Well, I got news for them that we're not going away. If you think there's too many people on the earth and we should die, you go first. Life is a gift from God, and I'm not going to waste it. Anyway, I did have a great birthday. Yes, thank you, Witta. It was great. And I had Witta's lovely card, which I was going to show people, but I don't know where I put it. Sorry. Witta says Ray Bradbury had it wrong in his story that once we got robots, we just separate into our homes and entertain ourselves dying out because we prefer to be alone. Well, I kind of like to be alone, but as evidenced by my YouTube channel, not completely alone. Now, Philip K. Dick, I think it was the Martian story. I almost named Ray Bradbury's novel. Martian Time Slip by Philip K. Dick. The people are stuck in their little habitats, tiny habitats, because there isn't oxygen to breathe on Mars. So they use something like the internet involving dolls, and they kind of enter into the dolls and have phone sex in which they actually feel, smell, taste, etc., everything. And they're cheating on their spouses, but it's okay because it's all, what do you call it? Something reality. Virtual reality, although Phil didn't use that term for it. Etsy Quintia had a bunch of furniture in storage for the last 3 years since he or she moved. Can't afford to pay for storage. Cheaper to give away most of the stuff. Yeah, I've been giving things away and donating, like I donated to the Lions Yard sale. Yes, Witted, Martian Time Slip has the little autistic boy who viewed time differently, hence the word time slip. Uh, well, Viken, it was not, I don't think it was the FBI that was surveilling Phil. I think it was the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. I have a great deal of respect for the on the ground FBI agents, but I don't like their higher ups right now. Well, I think Phil wanted to die, but it's complicated. He was constantly ill and in pain, both emotional and physical. And he'd finally been recognized, got a bunch of money and fame. Anyway, I felt betrayed because our son was only not quite 9 years old, and we felt so abandoned. But anyway, back to entitled. All these people who feel entitled, that goes back to the days, well, in some cases, it's still here. The titled nobility. If you're entitled, you have a title of nobility and you have more rights than the unwashed masses. For example, I think it was in Cadfile, the nobleman killed his servant before he could rat on him, and the sheriff was disturbed by that. But the nobleman said, "Well, he's my servant. I'm entitled. I'm allowed to kill him." And that was the end of it. Cadfile is a great, I don't know what to call it. I guess a murder mystery show, but it's set way back in the days of Queen Maud and Stephen and the Civil War in England. So it's like Middle Ages, and the war is going on. And Cadfile is a monk who uses herbal medicine, and he solves murder mysteries and generally helps people. It's a fascinating show. And there really was a war between King Stephen and Queen Maud, or Empress Maud. And Maud had the better claim to the throne, but Stephen won the war. But in Cadfile, the war is still going on. Okay, I really gotta go. We're at more than 2.5 hours, so let's do thank you all for listening and have a great day. Catch you next time. Thank you, Howard. Okay. Yes, with all of us, all of you, take care. Ooh. Yes, vegan, bye, mate. Well, thank you, at Sequentia. I love it when you're all here. Eat some food. Well, I had some food this morning, but I still have my takeout box from yesterday's lunch because it was more than I could eat. So I'll have the rest of the grilled chicken salad. See ya.